So here is the graphic of all the teams who are left in the Big 12 that have a chance to play for the championship. There are 16 teams, and 9 of them remain alive. Arizona State, Colorado, and BYU right now are in the best position, some better than others, but there's mathematically, by the way, unless something pops up like the Big Ten 3 days later, Oregon clinched the Big Ten championship game. That's where we are. The Big 12 still in contention, and it is pretty interesting with 16 teams. Do you feel like it's because we've discussed this, that not everybody plays everybody, so sometimes you just get eliminated by that? Why are there still 9 with just 2 weeks to go?
Yeah, this is one of those things to say, like, hey, this is how good the league is, but the only chance that most of these teams have would be to win out, get help, and then obviously win the Big 12 championship game to get that automatic. Well, and then if you've got a 4-loss team, do they – if Army's got 1 loss, do they, do that? Like, so this is the Big 12 trying to promote itself, and I get that. But look, the teams that are still in contention are Iowa State, Colorado, Arizona State, and BYU. That's who's in contention right now. And Iowa State is hanging on to the bottom rung. Okay, so Arizona State and BYU will clear up a lot of things, and a lot of this will be cleared up this week just by the fact that games are played and you only have 1 game left to do anything.
If you're 2 back now, you're in it in some way. If you're 2 back after this weekend, you're done.
Yeah, so.
Oh, yeah, there's only 1 game left.
Yeah, there's one game. So this is one of those things. It's 4 teams that have a legit shot. This is a cool graphic and all, but, it's not like the absolute fact of the matter.
I mean, it's mathematically true.
Yeah.
It's just not all that likely, and it's really not all that important. But I guess if it has 9 fan bases feeling like they have a chance heading into the final couple of weeks, then that's what you're going for here, and just to promote the competitive balance. But this is what happens when you have no teams that are undefeated. It's what happens when you have, just a league that's built on basically like-minded and like-built teams. It's the same team. Just a little bit of an advantage here and there, basically seeing itself in the mirror nearly every week for, 10 weeks, or 9 weeks. So you're going to have a lot of parity. You're going to have a lot of teams beating up on each other. You're going to have situations where you have a bunch of teams with 3 losses like you do now, 6 of those. You got, 4 of them, 3 of them with 4 losses. You got 2 with 2 losses, 2 with 1 losses. So, yeah, I mean, there's just no clear-cut team now that BYU lost, and it's a bit of a mess, but it's what Paul said, basically. I mean, it's BYU, Colorado, Arizona State, and Iowa State. That's really the race, and I think BYU and Colorado can all but clinch it this weekend, depending on the results. I know Iowa State's results big. If Utah were to upset them, then that kind of clears the way for this to be a lot more clear out of this weekend, but I don't think many of us are anticipating that, although Iowa State hasn't played exceptionally well, so who knows? Maybe Utah could go pull an upset. That's what would really kind of clear this mess up, though. Otherwise, if BYU wins and Colorado wins and all of that, then I think you're still staring straight at them. But
I thought there was a chance at the end of this weekend that BYU and
Iowa
Colorado,
State upsets Utah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But otherwise, I think there's another week of, there's technically you could lose this game and that. But, yeah, I think the clearest path – and it was tough because I was looking through articles last night, and there's 2 published from the same day, and one of them says you can do this and this happens, and the other says something different. It's like, all right, so not even the reporters know exactly what the tiebreaker scenarios are.
Well, neither did an entire
The Big 12 only put this out and said, well, we're not going to comment on every tiebreaker. No, but they put it out and they said we're not going to comment on every tiebreaker to reporters who asked. And they just put this out and said we're only going to talk about those who technically still have a chance, but they didn't get into the details or the depths of the exact, possibilities. But, yeah, I think the clearest thing is that Colorado and BYU win this weekend, and they'll pretty much, set themselves up to close this bad boy on out and make their way to Arlington.
Yeah, they gave out a note earlier this week about how clear-cut it could be at the end of this weekend, but still things have to happen and not just straight-up wins against the teams at the very top or losses either. Arizona State will be hosting BYU. We've heard from their assistant coach in Brian Carrington. We also, of course, today BYU, as they go through their workouts, trying to get themselves back off the mat after losing that game and could not convert late against Kansas last week, at which they'd done multiple times. That game in Tempe is sold out. I love Sun Devil Stadium. One of my best, favorite ever memories was watching Nebraska win the national championship there. But also been there when I was a kid, watched a few games when they had players like some of the great Hall of Fame names in Arizona State history, Jerry Smith, Charlie Taylor, among others. That game is sold out. One of the kids in that picture, young men, is our friend C.J. Fight, the defensive lineman from Tatum, Texas. There is a sold out officially with that game, and that's great. That's a pretty large stadium, Paul. Craig, you think like 70,000 or so, 70, 75,000? Yeah. It's hosted Super Bowls, national championships, and good for Arizona State to have that kind of interest.
Yeah, nowhere close to 70,000. This is 53,000, what I'm
really?
seeing on here. Yeah, 53,599 for Mountains America Stadium.
They hosted Super Bowls.
Yeah, but that was back in the day where it was it's been a while since they have. At Sunday.
Cowboys and Steelers might have been the last time they did it.
Yeah, that was in the 90s when 53,000 was like about what you do. Yeah.
But they are sold out. Good for them, because that's not something they've done much at Sun Devil Stadium.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you'd expect for a game like this. It would be bigger news, I think, if they weren't sold out, but still it's a good thing to have out there and to promote and to accomplish, because you just never know. But, yeah, you would hope that would be the case, because I don't know how many bigger games they've seen here of late. I know they've seen people roll in who are ranked highly, but I don't know that they've been good themselves when those teams have rolled in ranked highly, not to this extent. So, yeah, this is a big game, and I would expect a raucous crowd, and that's what Kenny Dillingham's been, in some cases, almost begging for at times this year. So, yeah, I'm glad to see that he's getting the support, and they certainly have earned that.
They did have over 70,000 for almost 15 or 20 years. They at one time had 74,865 from 89, 90, and 91. When they hosted a national championship game, they were over 73,000, then started to downsize, and now where they are today, as Craig said, just under 54,000. A lot of media today in Boulder is the Buffaloes are red hot and obviously getting a lot of attention with the Shedeur and Travis Hunter, among others, and a lot of players. The receivers are all really good, including Horn, Wester, and Shepard. Today, Travis Hunter was asked about the NFL draft, and he basically did confirm today. That's from Brandon Marcello. Yes, that's definitely for sure. Somebody followed up on that. Is that definitely for sure? He's thinking about it. No, he will after the season's over. No surprise whatsoever, be entering the NFL draft, and he might be doing it as a member, of course, of the Heisman Trophy classes.
Yeah, he might. He has a good shot at getting drafted number 1 overall, depending on who has that pick. He's all right, I'll just throw it out this way. The Cowboys have potential right now to get that number 1 pick. Right now, they're at number 9. But if they keep losing, and they have been the worst team in the NFL the last month, if they keep losing, would you put it past Jerry to take Travis Hunter, number 1 overall?
No, I wouldn't. I just don't. Yeah. Does that do them any good?
I mean, it doesn't hurt. Like, taking the best player available doesn't ever hurt anybody.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah. Well, he made it official today as far as with that particular quote. Not just Brandon, but many, but saw that first with Brandon in his feed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how the Cowboys needs rank or whatever, but, yeah, best player available. He'll certainly be that on most draft boards, and I think he's the favorite for the Heisman Trophy right now based on the odds that I've seen and just kind of the way the momentum's playing up in his direction. So he's a great player. He's going to be missed in Boulder for sure, but they're obviously, as we're going to talk about, starting to load up for next year. But, yeah, he's been great and could very well bring a Heisman Trophy back to Boulder and therefore the Big 12. But, I mean, this is the least surprising news ever is that he's going to the NFL draft.
Well, and I would like to compliment him on not doing the whole, I don't know, we'll see how it plays out thing. Dude, we know.
Yeah. Shedeur Sanders knows about Travis Hunter. Today, when asked about the Heisman Trophy, he should win it. That's it. That's really it. I think he's deserving of it. It's between me and him, and I would want him to get it. He does a lot of amazing things and things that haven't been done before. He obviously is a special talent, and there it is from the quarterback that throws in the ball, and sometimes Travis gives it back to the quarterback with what he can do on defense too. Not a surprise. I do think it's interesting. It's between me and him.
No, he said if it's between.
Oh, if it's between me and him, because I wonder if both of them. I doubt both of them will be in New York City. I think you'll see.
I don't think Shedeur
Cam
has a chance
Ward.
right now.
I think you'll see Travis Hunter. You'll see Ashton Genty and
Dylan Gabriel. Like Shedeur's not going to be in New York for the ceremony.
No, he's not.
Yeah.
No, he's not.
No.
Also, I am, everyone knows I'm not like a big fan of UT, and sometimes it's as much the fans as anything else, but they're really good. And I have said that from the beginning. Steve Sarkisian has become one of my favorite coaches. We got a chance to interview him. It's been a while since the Big 12 Media Days in 2022. But I liked the way he talks. I like what he's done to a program that was, I don't know, too soft or whatever it was, dysfunctional. Here's what he said.
I couldn't disagree anymore. Lane and I both know we've been in the SEC long enough. It's a heck of an accomplishment to be an SEC champion on the football field, almost as much as it is being a national champion. I think Nick Saban can attest to that. Kirby Smart can attest to that. So we're all striving to be SEC champs and would love that opportunity. And then if you can go win that game, then you do get that bye, and then you don't play until the end of December. And so the key to the drill is when you get into that game is finishing the job and trying to win a championship to celebrate that with your team and then earn a first-round bye so you don't have to play till the end of December, early January.
So when I saw that, I listened to it. I reached out to Ian Fitzsimmons, who's a guest of the show, and I said, hey, can we use that audio? I love what he said. Everything about it. It wasn't like, well, it might be better if we're not. He said it. I love it. I love what Sarkisian's done with what he's brought to the University of Texas.
Lane Kiffin is also, by saying that he's accomplishing two things. By saying, look, it's not the end of the world if we don't get into the SEC title game because we feel like we deserve to make the playoff. He's also setting it up for the small pocket of fans to be like, well, there he goes, not in the SEC title game again. What are we paying all this guy for? He's like, well, it's not that important anymore.
I'm glad that Sarkisian, when they're being asked about Lane Kiffin's comments, actually, back to the championship game and its importance. I think everybody knows that Lane Kiffin is trying to worm his way into what's best for Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin. And their best argument right now is that the championship game shouldn't matter. So I think if he were playing for it and he was the favorite to be in it, I don't know that his opinion would be the same. I think Lane's doing what's best for Ole Miss and perception, but I love that Steve Sarkisian's like, no, if you want to win the SEC, go out and win the SEC championship. The SEC championship game is important. I think when you start talking about devaluing of regular season, here's a prime example of it. You got a coach who's like, no, let's get rid of championship games so that we can just get as many teams in and not really decide a champion at the end of the year. That's where maybe you're getting watered down by the expanded playoff. But I agree with Sarkisian. I understand the argument against SEC championship games. I just need to hear it from more people other than Lane Kiffin for it to mean something, because I think he's got a personal reason for feeling that way as of this moment. But, it will be interesting to see what does happen with conference title games because of the money involved and the playoff stakes. But I appreciate Sarkisian's approach here.
Who would ever want to admit that they don't want to play for a championship? I know it's not the national championship, but whether it's the Mountain West Conference Championship or it's the SEC championship, I don't want to see any of those things devalued at all, even though eventually you want to be a part of the 12. By playing in it and winning it, you're in it. And by playing in it and playing well, if you have the ability to be in that game, you're still probably, with that conference, going to be in it, even though there's a scramble of 5 or 6 teams that are trying to get into that mix of how many the SEC gets into the championship playoff.
And he's talking about the reward of getting a bye versus getting knocked out. Lane, you're full of it because the loser of the SEC title game is not getting knocked out of the playoff. That's not going to happen.
It's not like last year when Georgia got knocked out.
It's just simply not going to happen. There's not divisions. So you're not going to have like the East champ with 4 losses, which was never the case really anyway, sneak in and they both championship teams are going to be in the playoff. So that argument is already rubbish. You're not getting knocked out in any way by playing in this game. Now, you might lose a first-round bye, but that's what he's talking about is like, does the reward of a bye outweigh the risk of getting left out? Well, first of all, that's BS because there's no risk of getting left out playing in the championship game in the SEC. Zero. So, yeah, you could lose a bye, but don't lose the game. Like, at some point, all of this, like, well, what happens if so-and-so loses the second and third and fourth? Guys, don't lose games. Like, what the hell are we talking about? It's like BYU of, well, if we lose this game, we're not guaranteed a bye. Don't lose the game then. Like, that's, I'm sorry, but that's just how it's supposed to work. Like, yeah, losing dings you. You don't get safety losses where, well, we get a loss that's just a mulligan, and then we get another loss, and it's like, depending on where you are, you get one, you maybe get a couple. But, yeah, like I think that's a ridiculous straw man argument that he's presenting there because it favors what would best favor Ole Miss, and that's all that is.
Well, look, if Ole Miss loses their third game and it's in the title game, which they're not even in right now, like they wouldn't be one of the – like right now it's, A&M or Texas are the ones who have the only one loss in the conference. So they're not even in it. I do think that Tennessee and Ole Miss have – and maybe even Alabama to some regard because of their losses, to take a third loss in that championship game because of the Kentucky and Vanderbilt and those losses.
Alabama would never say we don't want to be a part
of
it.
No. What I'm saying is, like when Craig says both teams are getting in, I do think a team with a third loss, if their other two losses aren't like Georgia's losses, like if it's Ole Miss and they've got one to Kentucky who's under 500 and going to be under 500, then that third loss might knock you out.
They're the second best team in the SEC. I get what you're saying, but you're playing the championship game. You're not East and West anymore. It's the two best teams in the league. So I get what you're saying of like you get that third loss, but if you go get blown out in the SEC championship game, don't get blown out.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, at some
and
point,
then if you do, maybe you don't deserve
exactly
to be
right. So like at some point, if you go to the SEC championship game, you get blown out and you have your third loss. Well, maybe you didn't deserve it, but I think most of the time, anybody who's that second best team heading into that game is going to have one hell of a benefit of a doubt, and they're going to have a pretty great chance of being in the playoff regardless. But yeah, like all these questions, all these hypotheticals that are getting thrown out there, it's a lot of like people trying to wrap bubble wrap around their teams, and it, is college football where we were at one loss dings you and can really hurt you, and two losses pretty much eliminates you. And now we're trying to go like, well, yeah, let's just not play championship games so we don't avoid that. It's just, come on, man. Go play your championship game.
They will never not because of the money that's involved in that unless they come up with some way that the college football playoff adds even more billions into the mix. We will get to the news, by the way, for Colorado in just a moment about today and a highly ranked player, but a couple other notes. Here is, speaking of Texas, the top-rated defenses – right now, top-rated defenses as far as yards allowed, Texas, Ohio State, Indiana. You hear a lot about Rourke, the Cignetti, and the offense and whatever. And, yes, I understand that perhaps their schedule is a lot. I don't even want to say that because it's not fair because other teams on this list could have the same thing said. Penn State, Army. And then here are the teams, the top-rated defenses from the Big 12, BYU, Utah, Houston. They host Baylor this week. Kansas State, Iowa State, and there's Arizona State, the Sun Devils, in the top 50 at number 44. All right.
I mean, the Indiana schedule thing is absolutely fair. I mean, it's absolutely fair, but we will see them play Ohio State this weekend.
Yeah, and we'll know, right? Then we'll know whether if they lose 20-17 or get beat 48-0. But what about the schedule for anybody else on that list? Can we question who they have played?
I mean, we can what about anything, we can what about anything. But I think that, the point is that, yeah, Indiana's schedule is fair. But, yeah, can we what about, well, so is Houston's or whatever? Sure, we can do that. But that doesn't take away from the fact that it's true about Indiana. So, I get your point that others have softer schedules, too.
It's true about Texas, and it's also true about
who
else?
It's but still, it's still true about Indiana. So
my point was this. I'm understanding where you're going. I'm saying is that everyone talks about their offense. Their defense is ranked third in the country.
Yeah. No, look, they're plenty good. I don't like the talk this week about how, okay, they just need to take their lump against Ohio State and all that because they can hang. They can absolutely hang, and their defense and Ohio State's defense, this game, I think it's going to be a little bit more high scoring than we anticipate. I do also think that, everybody's talking about Indiana's schedule. Okay, Ohio State has a slightly better schedule than them, having played Oregon and having played Penn State, but most of their schedule's the same. Like, it's the same caliber of teams. Ohio State, Penn State, Indiana, Oregon. And Oregon playing Boise State in the non-con actually makes them better, but none of those three teams, Penn State, Ohio State, or Indiana, had as good of a non-con as Oregon did. So, let's not pretend like if you're going to say that about Indiana's schedule, outside of a game with Oregon and Penn State, whose offense isn't that great, who are we talking about them playing?
I agree with you, and I'm not really into the whole anti-Indiana thing, but we're talking about a team that's played 2 top 5 teams already and is about to play a third, and they went 1-1 and lost by 1 point to the other, and the other team we're talking about is just now playing their first-ranked team of the entire season, and there's 2 games to play. So that's the difference. You're about to play your third top 5 team. This team's about to play their first-ranked team, period, with 2 games to play. That's a pretty big difference. Yeah. But, your point stands.
My point is that I wasn't talking about Ohio State compared to Indiana. I was talking about other teams on that list. You don't hear as much about that as you do Indiana. My point is you hear a lot about Indiana. Yeah, they score a lot of points. They are also third in the country. I don't care who you're playing in this day and age of football. You're the third-ranked team in the country defensively.
Yeah, I'm talking about Paul's point about who Indiana's played.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just like, Ohio State, yeah, but, if you want to drill, my point was, if you want to drill down into it, the Big Ten's all play the same kind of schedule.
Somebody asked me on a DM in the Twitter, who has Texas played as far as offensively? Did you know that Arkansas is the 11th ranked team in the country on offense?
Yeah, they didn't give it many points.
Yeah, 20-10. Yeah. I didn't know that they were that high, but they're the number 11th ranked team in the country when it comes to total offense. Now, Terrell Bernard, former Baylor star, All-American, named the AFC's Defensive Player of the Week. A beautiful picture of him. He sealed the game with an interception, the Defensive Player of the Week with the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, he was fantastic against the Chiefs this week. Not only interception, but he was just all over the field. And not surprising. He's one of the best linebackers in the NFL right now. Maybe he doesn't people don't know him like the others. Of course, linebacker is maybe kind of a forgotten position in the modern NFL, like the way it used to be. There's not the Jack Lamberts and Lawrence Taylors of the world. Everybody's kind of like a combo rush end or whatever. But for a pure linebacker, he's one of the top 5 in the league, in my opinion. Not surprised by that either, because he's, we saw it here, what he's got, especially sideline to sideline, and what he does.
Two different players that played at Baylor, both he and Petrie, basically ended games with plays during turnovers, with Petrie blowing up that fumble by Guyton that he picked up, the offensive lineman from the Cowboys. And Colorado today picked up a 5-star quarterback in Juju Lewis. He committed on the Pat McAfee show, and the 5-star quarterback has committed to Deion Sanders and the Buffaloes. And so they get their quarterback of the future.
And we have the video if you want to see it. It's the one he put on Twitter.
Julian Lewis.
Julian Lewis.
My name is Julian Lewis.
The natural ability that he has.
And he looks to be the next big thing.
We all know about the 5-star quarterback.
He is one of the most accurate quarterbacks.
The ascension of Juju Lewis to Colorado would be something else.
This fan base, man, I'm telling you, they're juiced.
Viral photo of Julian Lewis and Shador Sanders
handing over the keys to the Colorado Kingdom.
As Shador Sanders leaves to go to the next level, the next legend at Colorado arrives.
They told me bust out my AP, perfect time. Perfect time. I stay shining.
Colorado gets Lewis. USC, who had Lewis, got Longstreet, who was committed to Texas A&M as a highly ranked quarterback as well. That all happening in the last few days.
Yeah, and I think it's a nice little fit for Colorado. I think he certainly has that, prime Coach Prime player swagger to him. And is he going to start next year? Maybe he's like Dylan Raiola, but they're probably going to get in the portal for a rental as well, I would think.
Well, it's a surefire sign that Deion's probably back next year. I think it's the biggest thing is that Deion, we've been wondering about what his future holds, just because you never know with Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter leaving and all the success they're having. You think he'd like to build on that, but who's to say when the era is changing the way that it will? But he said the quote about the kickstand and being in Boulder the other day, and now you've got this big quarterback commit in Julian Lewis. So I think that's a pretty surefire sign that he's going to be around, and that's my big takeaway from this. Also that Colorado landed a really big fish, and I don't know when he plays, how quickly he becomes a starter, all that kind of jazz. I really don't think that's important now, because today's the day to just celebrate the fact that they landed him after a really long pursuit, and it's just another piece to build on for that program as a whole. So I think that's good news for, obviously, Colorado. It's great news for Dion, great news for the Big 12 as well, that he's going to probably be sticking around based on this. So I think that's the most telling thing. But also, yeah, they got a hell of a player, and we'll see how quickly he's able to go and showcase that and how they go about replacing Shedeur next year.